He lives in a small trailer with his mother, Charlene, who struggles with sadness and alcohol dependency. Concurrently, Greg attends a military academy harboring a deep and mountain doubt about the Vietnam War and the establishment itself. Then, in a pivotal moment, Greg encounters a group of high school students. He is instantly charmed by a lovely, effervescent girl named Kate, who possesses an incredibly luminous spirit. She invites him to a Janis Joplin concert, which begins a period of significant upheaval. They take a psychedelic together and are thrown into a kaleidoscopic experience, a direct encounter with what Timothy Leary termed the divine. This exploration of drug culture quickly spirals into a dangerous situation. The revelry concludes with a terrifying incident at a party when Kath's sister Dodie endures a life-threatening drug overdose. One can sense Katha's profound horror as she grasps the grave consequences of their way of life. Greg experiences his own crisis during a reckless joyride with his friend Charlie that ends in a serious crash. He dashes screaming through the streets in sheer panic, absolutely certain that he is facing his end. At this point of desperation, something unexpected happens. A man named Lonnie Frisbee discovers Greg in his agitated condition and just sits with him, exuding an astonishing sense of calm. Lonnie then utters profoundly transformative words, informing Greg that God says his flight is over. Meanwhile, the story introduces Pastor Chuck Smith and his traditional church, Calvary Chapel. Chuck is at first highly critical of the hippie counterculture, muttering that they all simply require a bath and employment. It is his deeply empathetic daughter, Jeanette, who contests his entire worldview. She observes that the hippies are seeking peace and love, similar to the professed goals of Christians. Jeanette offers a ride to a hitchhiker who turns out to be Lonnie Frisbee. Lonnie, a redeemed hippie, clarifies he is on a quest to share the gospel, and his earnestness is utterly compelling. One can witness Pastor Chuck's early skepticism dissolve before Lonnie's innocent and authentic spirit. Lonnie analyzes the counterculture, describing them as sheep without a shepherd pursuing falsehoods. He presents a striking challenge to Chuck, declaring that the entrance to his church is firmly closed to these yearning souls. After this, Chuck decides to welcome Lonnie and his companions into his home and church. Before long, his yard is teeming with hippies, all camping and foraging an exceptionally lively and colorful community. Lonnie also presents a Christian rock group named Love Song, who play deeply stirring music right in Chuck's living room. The established congregation protests about the most trivial matters, such as bare feet soiling the new carpet. Yet Chuck makes a monumentally brave choice to wholly welcome these misunderstood outsiders. He proceeds to deliver a very powerful and impassioned sermon. Chuck proclaims with immense fervor that the church belongs to every outcast and all the misinterpreted individuals of the world. He gazes upon the crowd and states, "This place is yours," adding that the door remains perpetually open for them. In an inspired moment, he informs both factions that the door functions in two directions, inviting all to either remain or depart. This gesture of profound acceptance is what ultimately attracts Greg and Kathy, who are thoroughly disheartened by the drug scene. They find a renewed sense of hope and purpose at Calvary Chapel. Greg's baptism by Lonnie in the Pacific Ocean is an incredibly moving and visually striking sequence. The two of them are given a fresh start, which becomes a turning point in their lives. From this point on, the ministry begins to expand at a rapid pace. The movement becomes so large that a gigantic tent must be raised simply to house the thousands of attendees. Greg suggests creating comic-style gospel pamphlets, which Chuck then prints and distributes. The revival spreads like wildfire beyond California, with individuals traveling from as far as Texas just to be baptized. The movement gains national attention when Time magazine features the Jesus Revolution on its cover. This success, however, also brings significant personal challenges for the main characters. Greg endures the painful disapproval of Kate's traditional father, who prohibits their union due to Greg's lack of conventional prospects. Then, in a profoundly shattering scene, Greg's mother discloses that his father was not his biological parent. This stunning disclosure clarifies Greg's lifelong battle with a profound and agonizing feeling of being forsaken. The growing success of the ministry creates friction between Lonnie and Chuck. Lonnie starts conducting highly theatrical healing services that cause the more staid Chuck considerable unease. His Pentecostal-style sermons contain a flair for the dramatic that begins to conflict with Chuck's vision for the congregation. In a strained moment, Chuck proposes that Lonnie lead another church, an offer Lonnie perceives as a crushing dismissal. One can sense their core relationship starting to crack under the tremendous pressure of their expanding influence. The disagreement escalates when Lonnie theatrically disrupts a service to perform a healing in his own way. Chuck at last confronts him about his pride and his urgent need for control, and the exchange is absolutely charged. Lonnie departs in a furious outburst, and it marks the seeming conclusion of an epoch. However, Greg steps forward and offers to lead the new ministry himself. Chuck demonstrates an extraordinary act of mentorship, acquiring a derelict church for Greg and urging him to create something wonderful. We also witness the deeply sorrowful price the ministry has exacted on Lonnie's marriage to his wife, Connie. Connie voices feeling utterly forsaken and managed, an overlooked partner in his fast-paced mission. Greg implores his friend and mentor to remain and assist him, but Lonnie's decision is firm. Lonnie utters a crushing statement saying that families disband just like musical groups do, and that he fares better alone. Seeing Lonnie and Connie depart for Florida is a poignant moment, brimming with unsettled pain and sorrow. Prior to his departure, however, Lonnie recounts a lovely and predictive vision he experienced of Greg ministering to thousands. Greg also manages to mend his relationship with his mother, learning the deeply challenging yet essential lesson of forgiveness. Equipped with this newfound maturity and direction, he triumphantly proposes to Kathy, at last surmounting her father's disapproval. His future now gleams with promise, a testament to the remarkable path he has traveled. The film concludes with a montage of news clips showing the movement's expansion across the country. We witness Pastor Chuck carrying on the mission, baptizing endless streams of people arriving from all corners of the nation. It is truly remarkable to consider that this huge spiritual awakening originated in that single small faltering chapel in Southern California. Greg proceeds to found his own immensely triumphant ministry, realizing Lonnie's extraordinary vision for his life. The narrative shows how people who feel lost can find a new sense of direction and purpose. It tells the story of how disillusioned hippies, a struggling pastor, and a lonely youth came together to create change. This Jesus movement completely reshaped the terrain of American Christianity during the late 1960s and early 1970s. Despite their personal disagreements, the film wonderfully pays tribute to both Chuck Smith and Lonnie Frisbee as its complex and vital originators. Their story is a reminder that positive outcomes can occur when people choose to be open and welcoming. The concluding message is immensely potent and connects profoundly with the universal human quest for greater meaning. You are left with a sense of immense hope and the deep understanding that a revolution of love is perpetually attainable. It is a story that leaves a memorable impression on the viewer.